Today, we live in a time, in a world, where everyone has opinions, but few people can really think for themselves. Most of our mental life is reacting to things, scrolling, comparing, and repeating, never actually thinking about what we believe. What do we actually think and feel? But there is a system, and you may guess what that system is, designed to teach one how to think, not what to think. And by learning, absorbing, and studying the system, one's mind, one's life, and all of one's centers can develop in harmony. And when I first read this passage from Maurice Nicoll that I'm going to share with you in a moment, I realized that it wasn't just a philosophy, but a living, organic framework for transformation of the mind itself. And of course, I had this inclination before, but this passage from Maurice Nicoll just really hammered home the power and importance of the Gurdjieffian fourth way and all of the canonical texts that go to make up that body of knowledge and work. And so in this video, I'm going to read the quote in full and then comment on each section at a time. And I hope that by the end, if you're not already interested in Gurdjieff's fourth way, then you may consider having a little look. So here is Maurice Nicoll's quote. Now this system, with all its ideas and principles, its tremendous background and its practical details, in fact the whole teaching, is a connected organic system constructed to make a man think and teach him how to think and give him something through which to develop his own thinking. For some of the ideas are easy to grasp and on a small scale, others are more difficult and on a bigger scale, and the connection between them may not be seen for a long time. But the whole intellectual centre, with all its parts, small and great, is eventually needed to hold the system together in its right order so that it can work aright and transmit force as an organised and living whole. So there we have the quote in full. Now let's unpack each section at a time and begin with the fact that it's an organic system. Now this system, with all its ideas and principles, its tremendous background and its practical details, is a connected organic system. And what does it mean that it's organic, living, breathing and evolving? Well, in Gurdjieff's magnum opus, Beelzebub's Tales to his grandson, he leaves in a sense the structure, the framework for a system. In Ouspensky's In Search of the Miraculous, it's much more well defined. But Gurdjieff is often quoted as stating that these ideas, the subtitle of Ouspensky's In Search of the Miraculous is Fragments of an Unknown Teaching. And Gurdjieff says that the whole system of thought has existed throughout all times. All of the prophets and avatars that came to the earth are ultimately preaching the same system, just in a different form, a different time and space. And so today, in 2025, you and I, we are trying to take what we can gather from all of the canonical texts and bring it into our own lives. Gurdjieff passed away in 1949. The two main books, you could argue, in the canon, Beelzebub's Tales to his grandson and In Search of the Miraculous, were published in 1951, shortly after that date. It's been 75 years that these books have been available, and the troubles, the issues, the main problem of sleeping humanity, it hasn't changed in those times, and today we have the same issues. And so let's contrast that with, say, social media, where everyone is just shouting into the void, shouting their opinions, not really giving much thought. And like I say, when you read the canonical text, when you go deep into it, you really see that it's an organic whole. One passage relates to another passage, and then once you combine those passages and begin thinking, it'll bring an association from another book, from another author, and you can pick that up, and then the understanding grows and develops. Gurdjieff speaks about knowledge and being, and how knowledge and being have to progress simultaneously. If one outruns or outdevelops the other, then there can be a problem. So the next line, or the next section, if you like, constructed to make a man think and teach him how to think. It's about our inner education. It's about our experience. Gurdjieff is always saying to his followers, his readers, verification. You need to verify these things. Gurdjieff says this isn't a doctrine. This isn't a religion. You have to go away and observe. Self-observation is the first thing one has to do in the work. And there's a difference, isn't there, between associative, mechanical, and conscious thinking. How can a machine think? That's what Gurdjieff would say to Ouspensky early on in Search of the Miraculous. He says very famously, why are you asking me about psychology? Why are you asking about psychology? What psychology can there be for machines? For machines, you have to think about mechanics. And so this is a very powerful and fascinating thing. So it's not telling you what to think. As I say, it's giving you a whole scaffolding with which to build your own thinking, your own system of thought. And for me, I can remember vividly and distinctly reading the main two canonical texts, as I've said, In Search of the Miraculous and Beelzebub's Tales. The first few times I read them, to be honest, 1, 2, even 3 times, I didn't get much out of them. I didn't get hardly anything. Let's say 1 passage out of 50 I understood, and that gave me enough to keep going. But there was something, a taste, again, intuiting this without being able to formulate it as nicely as Maurice Nicoll has and did. But I sensed something was there, and so I persevered and read the canonical text and some of the biographical material in order to build up my own intellectual center, my own sort of views of this system. And here I am talking on the internet, trying to exhort you to have a look into it if you haven't already. So the next section, the whole intellectual center is eventually needed to hold the whole system together. In Gurdjieff's ideas, you have the intellectual, the emotional, and the moving center. And so as we read and learn and work through these texts, it doesn't just develop the one center. It's not just for the intellectual center. You have to bring in your emotional center. You have to bring in your moving center. Ideally, you want all of the centers to combine for a moment of self-remembering. And if you're just trying to read a book like In Search of the Miraculous or Beelzebub's Tales to his grandson mechanically with the formatory apparatus, Ouspensky would say, you're not going to get anything out of it. It's read to be read with attention, with time. The emotional center has to come online. Maurice Nicoll in previous letters has said, what's your valuation of the work? How much do you value the work? And how much you value the work, how much you try and remember yourself throughout the day, the amount of time you've spent in self-observation, observing yourself, your inner reactions and states. This only goes to, again, build your value, make you value it more highly. And the whole intellectual center is required to make all of these connections, synthesize everything that you read into an organic whole. And that's the next section. Transmit force as an organized and living whole. And this is the culmination of years of work and study. Again, you're not going to read In Search of the Miraculous and it's like sort of 400 pages and raise your being, raise your consciousness. That's not going to happen. You're going to have to read it again. You're going to have to read auxiliary books. You're going to have to read some other texts that bring additional information. And once you've done this for many years, done your own verification, done your own observations, and again, the book, the methodology, the system has increased in value in your own life, then this force, this understanding, this conscious energy is going to be able to flow more into your daily life. You're going to have more value for the fourth way. You're going to have benefited from not expressing negative emotions. You're going to have benefited from understanding about the laws of creation and the laws of the universe and how everyone interacting in the world is doing so because they're asleep, and so you'll have less judgment, more compassion, and all of these things will come in. And in a sense, Gurdjieff or Ouspensky, Bennett or Raj, Fritz Peters, they're all transmitting. I think in Beelzebub's tales, the term is Hambelzoin, this sort of energy across time and space. So when you're reading Beelzebub's tales, you are connecting directly to Gurdjieff, his words, his mind, and his soul, ultimately, if you like. And like I say, when you read, discuss, and live out these ideas, it can be really powerful. And I will say, this is my own personal reflection, if you like. This, I think in this reading we did, it was say 10 or 15 pages, but this one section for some reason really jumped out at me. And again, that's why I'm sharing this one paragraph and not commenting on the whole of the reading that we did. So how can this idea of a living system apply to us? Well, to start with, you're not going to be able to understand it in a short amount of time. You're going to have to, with time, energy, and attention, intention, effort, you have to study, you have to learn, you have to be able to grasp the concepts. I'm going to put on the screen just very quickly the table of contents just for, this is In Search of the Miraculous and Ouspensky's The Fourth Way, and just have a look at the number of topics and ideas and concepts that are covered. And so to grasp all of this, you have to have multiple reads. The work is to awaken. That's what Gurdjieff says. There is nothing can be attained in sleep. One has to awaken. And so that's the main essence, if you like, of the teaching, to awaken knowledge and being, essence and personality, all of these things that if you're familiar with In Search of the Miraculous, you will know, but it's not something to believe in. Gurdjieff says this system doesn't require any belief. You have to verify, you have to observe. It's a system that has been given to us by Gurdjieff, Ouspensky, and all of the other canonical writers. It's been given to us to wake up, ultimately, to learn how to think better. But it's only if you bring your whole essence, your whole soul into it, your intellect, your feeling, and your body, if you bring that, then one day, hopefully, the system will become alive in you. You can awaken, you can interact with the world more fully, more deeply, with more compassion, more understanding, more empathy. And again, if any of that is interesting for you, then be sure to go and check out the recordings of In Search of the Miraculous. There are other books on the Book Club audiobook app. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might put in the comments or send me an email and I'll address them directly. But for now, I do hope that the work finds a place in your heart, in your soul, and that you can awaken to your true nature.